Okay, this tutorial will be on drawing long straight hair, which I think is actually probably the simplest style to do. We're going to start the same basic steps that we use every time we draw hair, even though we're doing different styles. We're going to do the shape, the form, including value, and then finally finishing up with texture. All right, so for the shape, we're going to start with the kind of shape of the hair around the face. So like this. So with this person, we're going to start with this middle part. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So we're coming from that middle part and around and over the ears. And I'm seeing this kind of front area of the hair do this. Then we also have this back area of the hair kind of come in front of the neck. And we're just going to let that go right off the page. Okay, and then over here, this person's hairline actually might be a little higher than mine, but since I already drew mine there, I think we're kind of stuck with that. So something like that. And then again, coming in front of the ear, maybe something like that. And then we also, again, have more hair that's in the back, kind of doing that. Maybe we'll just end it something like this. So already starting to get some of that texture in. All right, so then from there, from this center line, we have this basically going straight back. And again, we need to make sure that the hair kind of pops up from the scalp a little bit. So like, let's say that's where the scalp ends. You can kind of see that lightly with the photocopy. It's kind of disappeared, but let's say it was there. So we're going to pop up from that a little bit. And then create plenty of volume around the head. So again, the hair, all these little tiny masses or strands of hair create these more sizable forms. And creating a little bit of flow around the head. So we can kind of play with that a little bit until we feel like we have that right. So we don't necessarily have as much hair texture around this part of the head as we did with the short hair because the hairs are just like lying down flat, but we want to give this a little bit of movement that will give it more of the feeling that it's hair. Then over on this side, again, kind of popping up from the hairline and making sure that you give plenty of room for the scalp, the skull, I should say. So something like this. So it's going to come in front of the shoulders. In this case, you could also put it behind the shoulders, but in this case, it's going in front. So we don't see a lot of it in this example coming down past the shoulders. I just don't have that much room here. But if I, I'll do, well, let's see. If I were to do this here, if you were to see more, depending on the exact hairstyle, you might see something like this. So if there are layers to the hair, you might see different layers here. So, and again, you get that sort of texture here at the bottom. And we've got lots of different example tutorials in here where you can see different drawings. So these hair references and examples, these can be really useful and you can kind of follow these as far as different examples of like longer hair and what sort of the hair texture looks like. All right, so since I wasn't able to fit that all on the page for mine, that can maybe give you a little bit more of an idea. Maybe with this, since we can't really see the ends of the hair because it is all the way down here and long, maybe we'll give her a little bit of a shorter hairstyle. So we'll kind of imagine that instead of ending all the way down here, halfway down her torso, maybe we'll end it here where we can kind of see that. So just for the sake of being able to see more of the hair, we'll give that a try. So to have that end a little bit sooner, so maybe we'd have some of these locks of hair here, and then we can, so giving her a slightly shorter hairstyle just so you can kind of see where this, how this would look like, what this would look like at the ends of the hair. So if you've got more room for the hair on yours, you can do this lower down the body. And of course, if you're drawing someone with shorter hair, then this will be helpful. Okay, so we'll just kind of do that for now. All right, so we've got kind of the basic hairstyle drawn now. We've done the outside, we've done the inside. We're going to go ahead and put in a little bit more of the part there. Now we're going to think about the form. So in here we have sort of this lock of hair popping up. So you actually have this kind of thing happening with the form. So this is going to get shaded in a little bit darker. You can see that really in the photo where this part popping up creates a shadow on this part where it's kind of coming under and closer to the face. You also have here, you've got some locks of hair that do this. So within these larger masses, we have these smaller forms. And I've sort of drawn some of these down here. I'll draw another one here since she has this kind of coming in front. So I'm kind of doing that now. And we might have some other areas here that I'm kind of pulling out from what I have down here at the bottom. All right, on this side, so again, maybe seeing some of these forms. I'll have this part where this kind of comes in front of this part. And then you can see here how this part kind of comes in front and this part is sort of separate. And here, right there by the part, we kind of have, again, this happening a little bit. And there's really a whole thing kind of happening here where this part is popping up. So I'm going to start indicating that this part would be a little higher. And we don't see that quite as much on this side, but same basic thing is happening here. We can't see it as much just because the hair is dark and we kind of have a shadow there. Okay. So just adjusting things as I go. Let's see. That should work pretty well. The only thing I'm not liking about this is that I had the hairline originally a little bit lower, so the shape of this is a little bit off. Let's see if I can pull this up just a little bit. All right, sometimes you can even erase on the photocopy here. All right, so that's a little bit better. I think making this space a little more accurate and giving a higher forehead like we're seeing in the model there. Okay, that's better. All right, so now we've got some forms pulled out from there. So now we're going to reinforce those by adding some shading. Let's see, I don't have a graphite stick here, so we'll work with the side of the pencil. All right, so we already talked about how this part is darker. And as I'm shading, I'm going with the direction of the strands of hair. So you're seeing the direction of these hairs. And like I said, I do think the longer straight hair is probably the easiest to draw. It's just a little bit clearer, I think, what's going on. Now this part is popping out a little bit in front, so I'm going to let it start getting a little lighter there. And then, since that's popping out in front, a little bit darker behind it. And a lot of this I'm basing on what I'm seeing. I would be doing even more based on what I see, except that we shortened her hair a little bit to fit it on the page, which you certainly don't have to do in your drawing. If your hair goes off the page, just let it go right off the page. But just for the sake of being able to make this tutorial useful, to see what's going on with the bottom of the hair. So I'm still shading in here, but I'm letting it get a little bit lighter, just like you can see there. This part, I'll start going this direction. Now, notice you could kind of see through that piece of the hair to what was happening underneath, so you might want to erase that first. So you want to keep in mind what forms are on top of each other, and the form that is in top is the one that you're going to see and that you're going to go with. Underneath here, so you can get rid of that. I can't erase it fully because it's part of the photocopy, but this would just kind of disappear. All right, I think we drew another piece of hair going this way. So again, I'm going to shade around that. And I've got this other little piece of hair here, so I can have that appear to be behind this part here by making it a little bit darker, especially along that edge. Again, if I want this part to go behind, I can make this a little bit darker. And we can kind of use, again, that idea of this outside, maybe starting a little bit darker to give it some kind of curving form. At this top part, I'm going to have the part along the part of the hair, portion along the part of the hair, darker, and then getting a little bit lighter as it curves up and over. So in this case, because her hair is dark, the lighter parts might still just be a medium gray. Here we've got this part coming behind a little bit. So we can go a little bit darker back there. And again, we're going to continue shading. So even these areas where it might be a bit lighter are still going to be fairly gray. You can see here that I'm getting some smudging, I think, right there. So I'm going to pull over my paper towel to protect what I'm doing here. Just a little bit hard to do while I'm simultaneously trying to show you guys what I'm doing. But I'll do my best. So here again, leaving this a little lighter since it's coming in front. Okay, so this will kind of give us a base. If the hair were blonde or a light brown, you might keep some of these areas white where the highlights are. But again, if you're going for more of a medium to dark brown, then you're going to shade in even where you've got the highlights. But maybe we want to go a little bit darker towards the edges, both in the back and toward the front. I have some that I left white, but I think because we're using a dark pencil as we blend, we can blend those in. So as I'm blending, I still want to go with the direction of the form. Here I would erase that ear if I could. Let me see if I can a little bit, even though it's on a photocopy. Try to erase that a little bit. There we go, that helped a bit. So going with the direction of the forms. And along the edges, we are going to have some smoothness, so we don't want to go over those edges too much, but we're going to be adding the texture anyway, so we can fix it later if we need to. So notice how I'm changing the direction a bit at these different parts, following the direction of the hair. All right, I haven't really done this side, so we'll go ahead and do over here. So again, at the part, it's going to go up, and you might here see a little bit of this area in between the two sections of hair. So you might leave that, and it's just going to be a gray in between, so it won't stick out a lot, but you may not want to have the hair completely touch right there in the front. You can see a little bit of the scalp along the part. Okay, so again, trying to make this a little bit darker, and we've got this up and over kind of movement of the hair. Then here, right along the hairline, you've got that shadow that's cast. And then the hair starts to fall in front again. And it comes over the ear. I'll try to erase this as best I can with the photocopy. And then as we're coming down and around, and some of the hair is falling over the neck, so all of this will be very dark. This part here starts to come in front. So again, we'll shade this in, going with the direction of the hair. So this area is now a little bit in front of that area, so a little bit lighter. So we can get a little bit darker toward the back. So again, create that feeling that the head curves and is three-dimensional. And then this area here might come a little bit forward. So maybe getting a little bit lighter. So, and we're seeing these different strands of hair in there. And then a little bit of hair texture over here. Okay. So, and then again, all of that shading follows the different direction that the hair is growing, and then we can blend it a bit before we start to add some additional hair texture. And we're going to add some of that with our pencil and some of it with the eraser. And I'm really trying to avoid resting my hand on my drawing. And I could also be using this to kind of protect it as I go. All right, so now adding more hair texture on top of that. So I can add more marks, especially to the areas that are going to be darkest. And again, paying attention to the direction this is moving. So we're having this area that comes this way. So up from this center part, we can do more with these hair texture. And we don't want these to look too even. So if they look too even, they're going to appear to be like stripes. I'm having to kind of move as I do this because of the glare. Okay. So continuing on, adding more. And I'm trying to be careful so that these kind of fall in line with the form. Some of these are maybe standing out a little too much, so I'm just going to kind of shade around them. There we go. So you really want to be careful that you kind of keep track of what's in front, what's in back, as one part of the hair may come in front of another part. So in a style like this, you want to make sure that the edge is smooth, unless maybe you have a strand that kind of does this. It may kind of come in front. If you want that coming in front, I could then pull that out like so. So again, following these different forms we've created. So in here, we've got this part that starts to come out from behind this part over here. And at the end here is where you may get a little more of the texture. So something like that might happen. Also here around the neck, so this hair back here will be falling in shadow, so it's going to be quite a bit darker. And in addition to that, you may not see the edge very clearly because it's also casting additional shadows onto the neck. So you can shade, and in this case, I'm putting that in with my blending tool to add those additional shadows. And I can do that over here as well. So something like that. And you may find more pieces of hair kind of coming over and falling in there. All right, so just continuing this. So again, we want this part to look like it's in front, and then when we start these strands, they're coming from in back. And some of this may not be totally clear when you're looking at the hair. Sometimes strands are very clear when you're looking in the mirror or at a photo reference. Sometimes they don't pop out as much at you, so you do have to exaggerate a little bit. They might be there if you really, really look, but you might have to exaggerate a little bit. But as you're doing that, then you can make them clearer in your drawing. And you can see a lot of this, we've got a little bit of a wave at the end of the hair, which is sometimes nice. It just makes it, even if you don't see it in real life, you can add it to make it feel a little more hair-like, to give it some movement. And so you'll see the hair kind of curve a little bit up here. And with that, you might see some darker areas behind, and then the curving part in front we can make get a little bit lighter as it's coming in front. And then the part in back, again, we're going to have that follow the direction of the hair. All right, so that's coming together pretty well. This area I might need to go back into and shade a little. So not all people will do that step where we blend, but what it does is give everything kind of a nice base, so it makes it kind of stick together a little more. Let's see, I feel like I went a little dark up here. I had kind of a glare on the paper, so it was a little hard to see what I was doing, and I maybe went a little bit dark. I want to make sure that blends in a little bit more to the area around it. And honestly, some of this part is so dark in the photo that I can't see the strands as much, so I can also shade that in a little bit more. But if it were kind of a little bit much, I could also pull out some strands with my eraser. I have this one in here that's just really, really dark that I don't want it to contrast too much against the rest, so I'm just going to shade around it more to help that kind of blend into the rest a little bit more than it's doing. You want some contrast, but that's a little bit too much. But with her hair, we can really have some areas kind of shaded in to help blend those in. Okay, getting there. Right, and I'm kind of pulling back and forth, looking at it from different angles because there's some glare happening on the page. So if you're finding that when you're drawing, again, you may have to kind of shift your seat as well to kind of see what it's looking like without the glare hitting it quite so much. All right, so that's coming together pretty well. All right, over here, again, adding that same kind of detail. So I'm gonna turn this a little bit to try not to rest my hand as much on here. So again, this is, we want to draw this popping up from the center. So we've got all of these texture lines following that form that we were seeing. So having all of these strands kind of agree with one another except where you know where one is coming in front of another. So here, this might come in front. And here we can also do that trick where you can make it come in front by making it lighter and erase a little bit. Just stopping to sharpen my pencil when I need to, and I'll switch back and forth here too. I've got some 4B pencils as well. So definitely when I'm doing darker hair like this, I have to really make sure that I'm not smudging what I'm doing. So I'm adding a few more kind of disagreeing strands just to add a little bit more depth and texture here to the hair. But again, I want to keep track of what's in front and what's in back. So if this is coming in front, I can go a little darker behind it. So we're doing this all very carefully to make sure that we're convincing with the forms. We want to, if I'm, I don't want it to look like a hair is kind of starting here in the middle of the head. I have to make sure that those strands look like they're continuing right up here to the top. Back here, again, as we said, we were making it a little darker toward the back part of the hair. Again, adding a little bit of a feeling of volume. That the head is 3D. That the hair is curving around it. And here you might have, again, maybe a few little flyaway hairs around the edge, just to kind of give that illusion of real hair. So real hair not being totally smooth and perfect, because these forms are made up of collections of smaller hairs. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I think there are some areas in here where I've got my darks maybe sticking out a little bit too much. So I can, again, have them kind of fit into a larger area of dark, kind of shading around them. So going back and forth with shading and erasing, so I think that's starting to come together a little more now. There we go. Yeah. All right, so I could probably keep playing with this a little more and kind of getting the hair more and more exact with what I want it to look like, but But that is pretty much giving you the basic idea. Oh, one thing I do want to add. So we added some more shadowing down here on the neck where the hair was falling in front of the neck. And we would also do the same thing up here around the hairline too. So you want to make sure that you're not smudging what you just did too much, but notice how the hair is casting a shadow onto the face, onto the forehead. So you may find that. So you want to make sure that you kind of blend that. Oop, what happened? Okay. But I would kind of start with that. And you want to make sure that you don't lose the edge of the hair in that. So it's kind of a fine line where you may have to add some shading and then go back and make sure that you clean things up and don't make the edges of this too blurry. You may find some areas here along the hair too, where you have little kind of baby fine hairs kind of coming out onto the face a little bit more. So that can also help give it some realism. So, and again, you might find a little bit of shading around the face like so. And I would need to blend this in. So making sure that's a little bit more even as well. So I can keep going and smoothing as needed, switching to a cleaner tool as well when you need to, either by folding it inside out or just having a couple blending tools there. So kind of adding to this as needed. So I think we're pretty much getting there. I'd have to add some shading because a lot of this got kind of washed out in the photocopy. But hopefully that's kind of giving you the idea. I'm trying to give her a little bit of color back to her face that got washed out. Okay. So trying to restore a bit of the shading that kind of got lost there with the photocopier so that everything kind of looks right in context. Okay, so all right, I think I'm satisfied. We can call that a complete tutorial. So there you go. Our longish hair, fairly straight. Made it a little bit shorter than our models just to keep the ends on the page. So there you go. Hope that helped, and good luck.